Welcome to Pushing Forward with Alycia, a podcast that gives disability a voice. Each week, we will explore topics like confidence, ambition, resilience, and finding success against all odds. We are creating a collective community that believes that all things are possible for all people. Open hearts, clear paths, let's go. Welcome back to Pushing Forward with Alycia. I'm Alycia Anderson. Today's guest is Kathryn Swaim, PhD student from North Carolina State University. She is studying lifespan development psychology. Our paths crossed when we were talking about events and advocacy and all kinds of cool things. Her research and her focus fascinated me. Her story about chronic illness and intersectionality of identity. She focuses on the research of belief, stress, being in older adults and with people's chronic conditions. Such a hot topic. Welcome to the podcast, Kathryn. So good to see you.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh. Thank you for coming and telling your amazing story that feels really important to share with our community. I would love it if you would tell your story, whatever you're comfortable with. Let's talk about chronic illness, what your lived experience is. Give us a little bit of history on this relationship that you now have with the term chronic illness.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say it's definitely been a lot of transition through the health stuff that I've dealt with. I've had migraines and headaches since I was like 10 years old. I feel like that's when I first started noticing it. And they just got worse as I got older. And then my senior year of undergrad, I started developing really intense migraines that would have me out for a day or two. And then the summer right before I went to my grad program, I started having these 10-second, really intense throbbing headaches. And they would pretty much knock me down. My vision and hearing would go out. It was super scary. I remember the day it started, it scared me and the person I was with a lot because I was like, whoa, everything just switched. And then once they started, they never went away. I would laugh, they would happen. I would turn over in my sleep, they would happen. Stand up too fast. I could be sitting, having a drink with some of my friends, almost pass out on the table. And so finally, I got in to see a neurologist, and we were talking about these things called activity migraines. And my neurologist was like, I want to do a scan just to see what's going on, but we didn't anticipate anything coming up. I got the scan on a Thursday during my spring break. And then on Saturday, I received a MyChart notification, and it said I had a mass in my brain. And I had so many things run through my mind, but I also didn't feel a whole lot of anything because I was like, who do I talk to about this? Because my doctor's office was closed. And I was at my parents' house in Greensboro. They were downstairs. I'm looking at my phone and I'm like, oh my goodness, what do I do? I had no idea.
First of all, to even find out that way seems pretty traumatic. That's one of my worst nightmares, is to open up my chart and see something like that hasn't been explained to me. How do you emotionally process that?
I still don't know how. I just went about my day. I went down and told my mom. She stood up and she hugged me, and then she said, are you okay? She handled it probably in the best way possible because neither of us knew what to do. I just was like, this is here. I don't know, what does a mass mean, though? It can mean so many different things. Is it cancer? Is it benign? Is it a cyst? What exactly is going on? My neurologist called me on Monday, and she was like, they couldn't tell the dimensions or anything on the screen because it was a CT scan. And so she was like, the type of tumor you have will probably have to be resected, surgically taken out. But she couldn't give me any other information besides that. She had to refer me out. And so that same week that she called me, they had me in and seeing a surgeon at this hospital very quickly. And it was terrifying. I had no preparation of what it was going to be. And The doctor sat down and put the image up on the screen after I got another MRI, or got my first MRI for that. And it was the size of a plum just sitting next to my brainstem. And so it was benign, but it was a cause of a lot of the problems I've been having that I had not connected. I actually ended up finding a doctor at Duke, Dr. Alan Friedman, and he directed me to my current wonderful surgeon, Dr. Samarodi, and he gave me the absolute most validation in my experience that I've ever had. My whole life, I couldn't describe a lot of my headaches that I had and the pain that I felt. Like, I was always very worried about being perceived as lazy. And I also didn't want that to come true either with having this information. I didn't want my life to change, but it did. It wasn't all bad, though. It's crazy to say that from a brain tumor, but there are so many parts of it that were actually beautiful.
Let's talk about those two things for a minute.
Yes.
So, first of all, you were worried that you would be perceived as lazy because I'm assuming, and you can fill in the blanks, but I'm assuming it's because your chronic illness was showing up in a way that was not identified and you were tired and you wanted to sleep. And I get a migraine every once in a while and I'm in bed. I can't imagine having them regularly as you were. When you told me the story initially, I was like, oh my Lord, it is my worst nightmare to have chronic migraines like that. Where does that stigma come from? Being perceived as lazy, because I think a lot of us do that from a disabilities standpoint, from like an internalized ableism versus what society is thinking about us and us wanting to reject that. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. I definitely know a lot of it comes from work culture in our society, as far as like the expectation to go. And I've always had a really tough time knowing my balance. And I still struggle with that. This chronic illness that I've had, like with the migraines, I found ways to work around it until I couldn't. And I realized like that wasn't necessarily the healthiest thing. And I had a lot of people around me ask the same thing of like, well, why? What keeping you from actually just like taking a minute? And I think it's for me, and it's something to reflect on. Like, I didn't want to be perceived as less or not capable. But I didn't actually know what that meant. I think I never put more thought into it until I really had to face like the potential of having a lot of things that I love change. And so I do think a lot of it is society. It's a lot of push in education. And the fact that disability and struggles are not talked about the way they should be. I was just having a discussion in school about how even in psychology, the literature and outline around disability is so limited. And it's been very confined to a specific way of thinking. And disability research has somewhat been trying to shift the focus of that. But a lot of times this push is only coming from one perspective of ability.
What is that narrow thinking in the psychology books today? What does that look like?
I do think a lot of it is shifting, and especially in the area that I work in, there's so many great people in the department who are very passionate about this, but I think it mainly comes down to able-bodied people who are trying to do research on areas that they have not experienced in a way that is limiting. And so it comes down to like even talking about having people who have experienced certain things or have the firsthand knowledge actually being involved in these decisions, in these designs, in the resources that are going to be applied to helping the specific community that it's meant for. Because a lot of times in psychology, there's studies that are done, but do they actually fully apply? I don't know. And I think that's the conversation that's been happening for a while.
I agree with you. We've had a couple other people on the show that have had varying chronic illnesses, and this medical model that we're looking at from a disability standpoint they had a lot of the same fears, and or the suggestions came from the doctors, literally, of you're lazy, this and that. And I think that you're right. Like, the lived experience, if you don't understand it, it's hard to understand it. So that's really unbelievable.
I think it's also just knowing what disability is, like the definition around disability. I feel like has changed a lot, or some people don't actually know, like they have an image in their mind, but even talking about mental illness or things that stem from that, people don't understand that disability can look like a lot of forms. And I know when you and I talked the first time, you told me about the apparent versus non-apparent disabilities. And that's such a key piece because I feel like so many people only focus on the apparent disabilities and what that can look like. And especially with someone that has things that kind of came up in my early 20s, like I've had to shift my own perspective on how I view disability for myself. Because a lot of times people, they think about sick illness, they think about chronic diseases. They're like, oh, that happens when we're older. That happens way down the line, not to me. But that's not the reality. Like we all typically will experience disability at some point. And I don't think that's very understood and why sometimes all of the stuff that we're talking about may be limited.
Absolutely. You're so well articulated in this. I can't wait to see what you do with your career, honestly. Okay, so you mentioned also when we started talking about this piece, the other side of it has been the good that's come out of this lived experience. What is the good you've experienced? Like, what did you mean when you said that?
Oh, there's so much. That's the thing is like there's a lot of difficult and challenging aspects, but the good parts also really like stick. And I feel like they keep going. First, I will say the people around me that I am close with, like the support I had was insane. Like, and even still now, like for my parents, my friends, the faculty at my program and all the other peers and students were wonderful. And so having connection with people and having open discussions about these things, I will say my department has been excited to have more discussions around this. I came to a group of the faculty last semester and they were asking some of the students, like, what would we want more of? And I was like, I think we should have some form of like training on disability. And that's why like you and I met, is because I was looking at guidance on how to do this and just seeing how these discussions from developmentalists and from people who have gone through their careers all the way through this, we're able to work together to find these things. And then also, my overall outlook on life has shifted in a lot of ways. Some of it, like I said, is hard. Others, I feel like it's made me more understanding of context. I think that is so important when, especially as a researcher who wants to focus on the health field and the struggles that people go through and caregivers and all the sides to somewhat help others understand that these processes that we're going through and these experiences that are so difficult, there's a reason why. And it's also things that can help. And so as I was going through this, I knew a lot of like the stuff that I might be dealing with because like I do study control beliefs and I study like how in control people feel of their health, their lives, their relationships, how they can achieve their goals, that type of thing. And so I'm going through this process of something that also was one of my worst fears of having happen come true. And I'm experiencing all these things and I'm knowing the science behind it. And I'm like, but what does that like actually translate? It's like I can see these theories, I can see these words, but as a person, what can be done to actually make sense? And so I think as a researcher, it's opened my eyes to a lot of the areas that maybe without this, I maybe wouldn't have noticed, like certain inequities in the healthcare system and overall experiences with like age and just overall connection, I think, is a big part of it. And so when I'm moving forward as a psychologist, I'm trying to be open that not every single person's experience is going to be the same. And generalization can be really hard.
And how refreshing is that in the medical industry in general, I would believe. because I think we're often pigeonholed into one persona or the other. Control belief. Tell us about that.
Oh, I could go on a rant about this. It's become one of my favorite things I like to look at in different populations of people that have been through illness or older adults specifically. But like I said, it's how in control someone feels or how like they feel they can achieve their goals or how much influence they feel like they have over their health or over medical decisions. It can relate to many areas of a person's life, but it's been linked in previous research to a sense of well-being. And so people who feel more in control of their lives, their health, their relationships, typically might experience more long-term well-being, and that can also translate to physical health over time. And so there's a lot of facets that I really am excited to explore with it. And my advisor, Dr. Siobhan Newport, she is one of the experts in this. So she has a lot more to say, but she's honestly guided me very well in it. And it's funny, I started looking at all this stuff before my diagnosis. And then it's within that semester, I was giving my first presentation on it. I was like, whoa, like this is happening, like to me right now.
I think that's a fascinating path to go down from a psychology standpoint. Like, I'm ready to sign up myself. Let me know when you're taking patients. I love that theory. That's amazing.
Thank you.
Because I know for me personally, when I feel like I have a grip or a grasp or some control over my life that is going a mile a minute or my own medical care or being strong enough in my own self to advocate when I feel like I need to, and all of those, when I feel like I'm empowered by that, I feel much safer. And when I don't, I feel unsafe. I love it. And I love that you're doing what you said other more medical professionals should do, or people in your studies, which is if you have the lived experience, put a couple of things together. And imagine how much amazing research you're going to produce with both of those like facets in place. Can we talk about intersection?
Yeah, I'd love to.
And how you're focusing on that within the healthcare experience that you're studying and what all of that means to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so many parts of it. I think, and when we talk about like intersectionality, like we very much have to realize that is a very complex word and it doesn't apply just to one specific group of people or meaning. And I think that's so important when talking about illness or how people cope with illnesses. Like you have to understand one diagnosis might be the same as another or very similar, but the experience the person goes through may be drastically different. And especially when it comes to what you're talking about, treatment within healthcare, I think knowing yourself can be one of the best things to do. And coming from a person that's lived through some of this, and not as much on the research side, but I developed such a voice for myself that I did not really have previously. And I think coming from the research side, understanding how, first of all, women, young people, and older people are treated in the healthcare system so differently, and how it can be so hard to find your voice and then to have it be heard by people can be such a struggle. There's so much invalidation within the healthcare system and getting a diagnosis. I am a young woman, haven't been super assertive in the past. I very much learned quickly I had to find my voice in that. Otherwise, I might not get the care I need. And it's not that these doctors and professionals are not capable. It's just they have so much they're doing. They have so much going on and they know the facts, but you know your body the most. And that's the thing is a lot of times when you're younger, when you're older, things will get pushed off. When you're older, people are like, oh, it's just a part of aging. That's normal. And a lot of things are typically written off. When you're younger, it's almost like the opposite. It's going to be X, Y, and Z, but it's not actually getting to the root of the problem. And a lot of times, pain management is written just to treat the pain, but not the source of the issue. And that's what I was going through for a long time. It's like we were treating the pain I was having, but not actively looking to see what was causing it. And so now, as I'm a primary instructor here at State, and so a lot of times when we get into the developmental sections around health, I take a minute and I'm like, every single one of you is unique and has had a different lived story and has different circumstances when it comes to insurance, socioeconomic status, your race, identity, ethnicity, everything that comes with it. And you have to be able to recognize that and the importance. And so when you are taking charge of your medical care, knowing the history, and then also finding the right people that will see that. And so I try my best to say your voice is the most powerful tool you can use in the healthcare system. It might not always be heard, but that's the thing. I had to go through a couple surgeons that were not the best people, and I did not feel heard. I felt dismissed in a lot of ways. Even when we saw my tumor, we saw what was happening. I felt a sense of blame. And I was sitting here thinking, I was like, if I was in my 40s and if I had a different gender identity, like, how would I be treated? And then it took me finding the surgeon I have now that said, none of this matters but your health and how you feel and getting you to a point where you get to do what you love. And that's the thing is I try to tell people, I'm like, don't ever go with your first opinion. Find others, because you might be getting treatment that you don't even realize is not okay.
I found doctors like finding the right care for me has been like speed dating.
Yeah, it is.
Like you got to see if you have the vibe to see if like you're saying, like they get your who you are.
They have to, 100%. Z is probably one of the most unique surgeons I've ever met. He's the kindest human. And the morning of my surgery, he came in, and as soon as I saw him, just this relief I had. I was like, he's got me. We're gonna be good. And after we said we were gonna make a handshake, and he helped me like figure that out when I was zonked out in the hospital. But it's hard. Especially when you were going through so many doctors and you're not finding answers. And it gets tiring. It's a very exhausting process when you're already dealing with so much pain. It's almost like you're screaming for help and no one's hearing you.
Yeah.
Where they are hearing you but not taking you seriously.
Which might be worse.
It is.
It probably is. It actually is. Obviously your self-advocacy voice is strong. It feels, I'm going to assume, maybe even like a central theme in your life at this point that you've grown into. What does that mean to you? What does self-advocacy and advocacy in itself mean?
Ooh, such a complex question, but I like it. I think for me, it's trusting myself in my body. I knew something in my gut. Like, I was like, something is wrong. Something is wrong. People are telling me there's not, but there is. And I didn't listen to it for a while. And then once we did, I was like, I felt it. And I don't know. I think for me, it's listening to yourself. Like, I feel like every single person has some form of an intuition around these things and around what is happening to you. Because the thing is, like, you're going to tell your symptoms to your doctors, but they're not in your body 24/7. I think for me is finding, even if you were so nervous, like voicing your opinion, even just pushing still, make the appointments, try to be there. And if someone is, like I said, treating the pain with like pain meds but not going deeper than that, say, no, I would actually like to try to find the source. I think it's try to think like beyond that.
I think that's great. And I think from a self-advocacy standpoint, and chronic illness has become finally, as it deserves, having a light shine on it where disabled people are starting to feel more comfortable sharing and being more vocal about it. I think that's how we're advancing in these conversations. And you've got a strong voice in it. So I think that's really powerful, honestly.
It's hard because I will say, like, when I woke up from surgery, I had a lot of physical changes that I wasn't prepared for that were visible to other people. And
What's an example of that?
so I had double vision. And so I saw two images out of my eyes because my right eye was somewhat restricted of movement. And then this side of my face also had weakness and some form of like paralysis to it. And I went into surgery thinking the biggest risk I was going to have was losing my full hearing in my right ear. And I woke up and other senses were switched a little bit and changed. And it was very obvious that something was different with me. And to the people who know me and love me, it didn't feel like anything. But when I was out and about, and I think I shared with you back in our first meeting, but I was in line getting a sandwich, and this guy comes up behind me, taps me on the shoulder, and says, "What's wrong with your eye?"
I remember that.
I was like, I just had brain surgery, actually. And the look of like shock on his face, and I'm thinking, if you're gonna ask a question, be prepared for the answer. But even with that, it's just the strong voice that I feel like I had developed before my surgery, I felt like somewhat dissipated for a while. I felt like I was knocked down a bit because there was challenges I wasn't anticipating. And this comes back to the control thing. It's what are we mentally prepared for? What do we feel like we can move through?
Yeah.
And I think I was very much in the trenches of figuring out what I had been through and finally coming to terms with that.
Yeah.
And
And that's traumatic. I think that takes time. And we need to give ourselves grace when we're experiencing those things. And the more we practice, the stronger we become in our voices. And it doesn't happen overnight, especially in that type of scenario. Like having brain surgery, that's so scary for anybody.
yeah,
And you're young and you're like trying to figure it all out. The control factor, I can't imagine anybody's like in full control of their emotions at that point. So
Mhm.
I think we have to practice it. And those layers of practicing, we become a lot stronger.
Yeah, and it's hard to practice it, I think, or in
Yeah.
what context. That's the thing
Yeah.
is with this, I felt like I had it and that I was ready, but then I woke up and I was like, I have no idea. I don't know what I'm doing. This could be my new reality. We weren't sure exactly what it would look like. And I'm very thankful for the support system I had because they helped me realize how great life can still look. And I remember one thing that Dr. Z told me. It was in the week before my surgery. We were sitting in one of the the rooms, and he looked at me and he was like, "What are you so scared of?" And obviously the brain surgery, but he was like, outcome wise. And I told him, I was like, I am terrified of not being able to do school anymore. That something could keep me from doing that. Because that's been my whole life. I'm 25 years old and school has been my thing. And he looked at me and he was like, it doesn't matter what physical things happen to you, you are still you inside and you will find a way to do it.
Oh, that just gave me the chill.
Yeah. And it stuck with me. Like I said, he is one of the most amazing people ever in this world.
Can we tell our audience, our listeners, how it shows up today? Because I think he was right. Like you
Yeah.
had some things you needed to, I'm sure, go through therapy and get your body back to where you were hoping it would be. Like, where are we today?
I'm doing it. I'm in school. I'm in my third year. When all this happened, I was in my first year. And so I have completed the milestones on time. Wildly, I still look at myself and I'm like, whoa, why? You could have slowed down. He was right. Like, I, at the core of me, am still me, and I have learned more. And even in that time when I was learning how to brush my teeth again and not being able to braid my own hair and things like that, and having to rely on the people around me, thinking I wasn't me, I still was. I was still thinking about school. Honestly, thinking about getting back to teaching and doing all the things I loved is what got me through it. And keeping those words in my mind that I'm still me and I'm going to accomplish it. I look forward to, and we're here.
Oh, you're so amazing.
Uh,
Oh,
You are amazing. I
no,
appreciate
well,
you letting
honestly,
me do this. I will say it worked out really well that we pushed this, because I think back when we first were talking, I was not as safe talking about this. I didn't
I
feel
actually feel like you've grown into it.
therapy can do wonders for you. And also just like the work I'm doing, the people I'm around, like I'm finding ways to be confident in my experience and find what you said, find power in where I am. Like I do have some hearing like loss, and that was really hard at first, but I find power in it because now I understand, like I said, so many different contexts and relating to people and
Mhm.
being there and helping them say, you know what your body's doing. Trust yourself. Because I wish someone had done that for me. Very
Beautiful.
much.
So, congratulations. I definitely can see the growth.
Thank you.
100%.
That means a lot to me.
I'm actually glad you said that because I was noticing it and I wasn't going to call it out, but I see it. So we end the show with a pushing forward moment. And is there something that you can, I don't know, a little nugget of motivation that you can give to our community that they can take away into their lives and worlds to find some of the power that you have found?
I'm trying to think, because I feel like there's so much I could say from that. I know I've been saying, so I don't want to be repetitive, but I really
Repeat it. Repeat it.
trusting yourself.
Say it again.
Trusting yourself. I think the best thing you can do for yourself is trust yourself and know that you know your body and you are the only one living in it every single day.
I think that's really
And
good.
things will happen. That's the thing, is we as people will go through stuff. We will go through hard things, but we're also all resilient. It's just tapping into that. Sometimes it takes time. It takes things to happen. And the most you can do is give yourself grace and trust that you've gotten yourself this far, and you'll keep doing so.
Grace, trust, believe. I love it. Thank you for coming on the show.
Yes, Queen. Thank you.
We're going to leave all your information in our show notes so our community can connect with you. And I know that our friendship is going to be growing further and farther and longer and always. And I'm really happy that you came into my life.
Me too. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Seriously, you helped me so much actually find power in myself and in my identity, even from that 30-minute conversation we had.
Oh my gosh.
I swear that conversation we had sparked so much for me, and it made me just feel like I do have a story and it matters, and it can matter to me. I appreciate you. Seriously.
It does matter, and it matters to a lot of other people too. All right. We're going to wrap it up. Thank you to our community for showing up today. If you love this episode, please share, subscribe, like, all of the good things. And we will see you next time. This has been Pushing Forward with Alycia, and that is how we roll on this podcast.